Major Hurricane Fiona is moving north at this time. It's moving past the Bahamas and will eventually go on to impact Bermuda and Atlantic Canada. Here is your latest storm update brought to you by Force 13 on Hurricane Fiona this September 22nd, 2022. A very serious storm threat at that, and it is wrapping itself up on probably another bout of intensification where it will likely peak out in the next 12 to 24 hours as a 140 mile per hour Category 4 major hurricane. Here's a forecast track for Fiona, currently with 1 minute sustained winds of 130 miles per hour, a pressure of 934 millibars, moving north directly at 10 miles an hour, that is 9 knots, at 26 degrees north, 71.16 degrees west. And it is moving. It's going to make that northeasterly turn in around about a couple of hours or so before returning more directly northeast up towards the northern parts of the Atlantic Ocean, the tropical Atlantic Ocean at least, turning extratropical as a powerful Category 2 or Category 3 hurricane before making landfall on either Nova Scotia or Newfoundland as a very powerful extratropical system. It will weaken significantly after that. However, still hurricane force winds are expected in Atlantic Canada at this time. Hurricane Fiona, as per the National Hurricane Center forecast cone, with winds of 130 miles per hour this time, will be making that northeasterly turn very shortly. Still a major hurricane late on Friday afternoon, well past Bermuda, where there is a hurricane watch right now and a tropical storm warning. Bermuda is likely to miss the direct impacts from the storm's core. However, we cannot be ruling out tropical storm force winds on Bermuda at this time. The chances of that happening are sitting at about 85% for the island. The storm will slow down quite significantly as it heads towards Atlantic Canada, which will cause rainfall totals to skyrocket, possibly up towards 8 inches in places, and prolonged wind damage is also expected in places. So as you can see on the multi-model diagnostic comparison, the storm is likely approaching peak intensity or peaking right now. Wind shear is expected to rise, but not until the rise on about September 24th, where it absolutely balloons up to around 60 or 70 knots. Sea-surface temperatures take an absolute tumble at that time as well. Mid-level humidity remaining fairly constant for the next 2 days, maybe rising a little bit over the next 12 hours. Now it's time to take a look at what the forecast models have to say. Here's the GFS surface level wind speed in knots. The green signifying tropical storm force winds, the purple signifying hurricane force winds, and the whites, if you do see a spot or two of that, that's major hurricane force winds in excess of 96 knots sustained. So you can see down the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, that is Fiona. In the center right of your screen, that's Tropical Storm Gaston. And look out for 2 new tropical storms that will form in the Atlantic Basin over the next 5 days. Now, one of them's down in the Caribbean and one of them straight off the coast of Africa. Quite a weird track, but the main feature right now, Fiona, a really powerful system, probably going to intensify a little bit more. Here's 24 hours out. It's getting very close to Bermuda. It's growing in size quite significantly at this point. It's probably undergone an eyewall replacement cycle at this time as well. Bermuda does get impacted with hurricane force winds about 42 to 48 hours out before the storm races up, starts interacting with a cold front, really dramatically grows in size as it undergoes its extratropical transition. The hurricane force wind field shrinks down a little bit. The storm also develops a significant frontal band, which again will extend down to Bermuda and include some pretty feisty thunderstorms in there towards the eastern side of the system. Really does interact with that cold front as it gets pulled into what looks to be a Nova Scotia landfall. Again, hurricane force winds on that part of the world, but the tropical storm force wind field extending all the way from Long Island through to Newfoundland and technically sustained right up towards Iceland. Look at how big this storm is going to be, with the tropical storm force wind field about 1,000, maybe 2,000 nautical miles across from east to west. It's a very big system before it moves into the Bay of Fundy and then up towards Canada, making another landfall on Canada again as a weak tropical storm equivalent extratropical cyclone, and then moving up towards Greenland, completely shredded at this time. And then moving again up there. Again, heavy rainfall, definitely a main threat. We'll take a look at that in a minute or so, but look at Gaston moving just offshore from the Azores as a near hurricane strength system, maybe winds of about 50 knots, dives back down again, and really doesn't become anything as it moves down into the more tropical part of the Atlantic. The other tropical storm moving off the coast of Africa becomes something before impacting what looks to be those islands just offshore from Morocco that I forget the name of. That's a very rare track to take. That'll be one of the furthest east tropical cyclone cyclones the Atlantic has seen, but the main story that everyone's looking at right now is Invest 98L, which initially takes a track very similar to Hurricane Delta of 2020, slams the Yucatan Peninsula as a near Category 3 strength storm, moves into the Gulf of Mexico as a pretty powerful tropical storm, and really goes boom in intensity, moves over that loop current, making landfall on what looks to be Alabama as a powerful hurricane, moves inland, and I'm just right now looking at a massive rain event up towards the northeast, but we're looking at sort of day 10, day 11, day 12 GFS right now, so things can change. But what's really scaring me is the consistency and the reality of how warm the conditions are in the Atlantic for tropical cyclone development. This storm could really verify, and we could be seeing, and I don't want to fearmonger here, a Category 3 or stronger landfall on the continental United States in around 10 or 11 days' time, somewhere between Louisiana and Florida. Models are saying different things depending on what model you're following. The ECMWF calling for a central Florida landfall, but again, at Category 3 status, there is some very scary consistency with here, and this is something we have to watch with close eyes, because this could become something very, very powerful indeed. So let's take a look at rainfall. This is accumulating precipitation. Once you start looking at purples, that's more than 3 inches of rain, the whites more than 8 inches, and the blues more than 10 inches of rain, sustained over the next sort of 72 and beyond hours. This is accumulating precipitation here. So the majority of the rainfall from Fiona stays offshore from Bermuda, but they could still pick up a healthy 2 inches of rain from Fiona, and this could be in a very brief period of time as well, so isolated levels of flash flooding is expected from there. But the real story is when the storm makes landfall in Nova Scotia as probably a Category 2 equivalent extratropical cyclone, bringing rainfall totals between 10 and 15 inches. That's a lot of rainfall, especially in the short period of time that it will all come in. But yeah, pretty significant amounts of rainfall expected to move into Atlantic Canada as well as Fiona makes its passage through, and it could also enhance some pretty significant rainfall for southern Greenland as well, which might even become snowfall in places. So blizzard conditions can't be ruled out there. Maybe far northern Canada in elevated terrain, we might see brief blizzard conditions depending on how cold it is. I haven't properly looked at that. But again, another worrying sign is that system just off the Gulf of Mexico coastline, the Louisiana coastline, the vast quantity of rainfall that drops, 25 inches just offshore from New Orleans, and look at the sort of Ida-like rain event. Rainfall totals up towards 10 inches, widespread for parts of the Carolinas, even into Kentucky as well, which, as we all know, absolutely saturated, up towards the Virginias, and then into Pennsylvania as well. Massive amounts of rainfall, and even more rainfall for Atlantic Canada as well, another sort of couple of inches of rain from there. So this is something that we're going to have to watch very, very closely indeed as well. But one thing's for sure, the Atlantic is firing on all cylinders, not just with Fiona, but with more storms to come. Let's take a look at some IR satellite imagery. It's looking really promising on this storm right now. You can see looking really sharp, really nice banding features. It's really wrapping its eye up quite nicely. The eye temperature now back into the positives after a brief closure earlier today, but it is looking very spicy indeed as it moves in a more northeasterly jog in the latest satellite frames. Let's take a look at some visible satellite imagery. The sun slowly setting over this powerful system right now. There is lightning in the eye wall, which generally indicates a strengthening tropical cyclone. So this storm really looking quite picturesque, and it's also quite a small system as well. It has grown in size a little bit over the past day or so, but it isn't massive in comparison to what we can see on major hurricanes. It is probably about the same size as Dorian as it was moving over the Bahamas, maybe a little bit bigger than that, and about the same size as Ida last year as it made landfall on New Orleans. A landfall that we'll never forget. And also a little bit of history, almost to the day about a year ago, Hurricane Sam was a Category 4 major hurricane in the open Atlantic basin, not too far towards the east of this system as well. So there's a little bit of history. It's certainly peak season, and we are feeling it this 2022 season. That is the latest that Force 13 has on Hurricane Fiona. There'll be more updates. There'll also be updates on Invest 98L and other storms happening around the world, so make sure you do subscribe, leave a like on the video while you're at it, and tell me how we can improve in the comment section down below. Click the join button to select a category that you'd like to intensify to get access to some very exclusive perks. That's the latest from us. Play the outro, and we'll catch you on the next storm. Goodbye.